You know that feeling, right? When an idea just kind of pops into your head, fully formed, almost like it was just there.
Hmm.
Or maybe when something you've really, really been hoping for just suddenly happens.
Yeah, those moments.
What if maybe those aren't just coincidences? What if they're actually, like, clues to something deeper? A power inside us that
Mm.
shapes, well, everything.
That's exactly the territory, the really fascinating area we're exploring today. We're focusing on Neville Goddard's teachings.
Neville Goddard.
Specifically, we're looking at a lecture he gave back on September 18th, 1967. It's called Yours for the Taking.
Yours for the taking. Okay.
And we're also drawing on some related materials, things that dig into his ideas about how our minds, our imagination influences the world.
Influences is maybe an understatement based on what I've read. Profound feels more like it. We've actually got a transcript of Neville himself.
Yeah, laying out his thinking.
And then there's website content that sort of unpacks his core beliefs.
Yeah.
So the mission for this deep dive is really to get into Goddard's main point,
Yeah.
that our imagination isn't just for daydreaming, it's the actual creative force.
Exactly. And, by exploring this, for you, the listener, it could offer a completely different perspective, a potentially transformative one.
How so?
Well, we're talking about the possibility that your inner world, your thoughts, yes, but maybe more importantly, your imagination isn't just reacting to reality.
But creating it.
It might be the very source code of your experience. So think of this dive as maybe a shortcut to understanding some really big ideas and how they could, actually work in your life.
Okay, let's do it. So the foundation, the absolute bedrock of Neville's philosophy.
Yeah.
It seems to be this unique take on God. It's not the typical image, is it?
Not at all. He sort of flips the script. Goddard's central idea is that God isn't some separate being out there,
Right.
but God resides within you as your own. Well, he calls it your wonderful human imagination.
Your imagination is God.
That's his assertion. He says it comes from personal experience, this knowing that the inner God, the only creator, is pure imagination working deep within your soul.
Okay, wow. So when Neville talks about God starting a good work in you and bringing it to completion,
Yeah.
he's talking about this inner imaginative power.
Yes, about that power unfolding, realizing itself. And he does connect this unfolding to the figure of Christ in the scripture.
How does that connection work?
Well, Goddard suggests that when this creative power, which he identifies with the biblical Christ, is unveiled within you, that's when you grasp it.
Grasp what exactly?
That you, your essential being, are God's power and wisdom. It's a very internal, experiential understanding of divinity.
Which naturally leads to how we experience desire then. It's not just a simple want.
No, not at all. In his view, it's almost like a direct line. God speaking to you through the medium of your desire.
Like God is asking.
Asking, what wantest thou of me, as he puts it? What do you truly desire?
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, right? Because normally we'd immediately think, okay, how do I get that?
Exactly, and that's precisely what Goddard warns against. He says, don't get bogged down in the ways and means. Don't try to plot out the steps.
Why not?
Because, and he references Romans here, God's ways are unsearchable. They're inscrutable.
Past finding out.
Precisely. They're beyond our logical step-by-step minds. So the focus shouldn't be on the how.
It should be on the what, on the desire itself.
And crucially, on belief. The power of belief is paramount. Goddard states, if you can believe your desire is fulfilled.
Not will be fulfilled, but is fulfilled.
Yes, is fulfilled. If you can feel that reality as true within your imagination now, then it's already, in that moment, yours for the taking.
Because nothing is impossible to the one who believes.
That's the core of it. You have to shift your consciousness, your feeling state, from wanting it to already having it.
Yeah.
That feeling is the creative act.
He uses stories to make this clear, doesn't he? From people he knew. Let's talk about his friend Benny. That first experience sounds unusual.
It really does. Benny described lying face down, just resting, and then physically feeling as if hands lifted his shoulders right off the bed.
Wow.
And in that exact moment, he had this internal crossroads. Like, do I accept this? Do I accept that my imagination, my inner state, can cause a physical sensation like this? Or do I just brush it off?
That's a big decision point.
Huge. And Goddard connects it to that biblical idea. He who is not with me is against me, implying there's no halfway house with this principle. You either accept its power or you don't.
And Benny had another experience too, right, during meditation?
Yes, another very vivid one. He felt like he was being held from behind by three figures, three men,
Okay.
and then they lifted him up, and as they did, he saw the sunrise in his mind's eye, and he heard words.
What words?
Look, behold, and then significantly, recognition.
Recognition. What did that mean in this context?
It tied directly into something Goddard wrote in his book, Your Faith is Your Fortune. The quote is something like, recognition of this truth will transform you from one who tries to make it so into one who recognizes it to be so.
Ah, so it's about shifting from striving and effort.
To simply recognizing that the imagined state is already the reality, seeing it as fact within yourself.
And Benny then used this understanding practically for a friend.
He did, yeah. A friend of his wanted a specific job, property manager at his company, but kept getting passed over.
So Benny didn't give him advice like update your resume or something?
No, nothing conventional. Following Goddard's method, Benny, in his own imagination, vividly heard his friend telling him the good news. He imagined the conversation, felt the reality of his friend having the job.
And what happened?
Well, months went by. Then the position opened up again unexpectedly, and this time his friend got it. Not only got it, but with a better salary and more responsibility than the original role. Exactly as Benny had heard it in his imagination.
And Goddard's point was that Benny directed this imaginal act, this prayer.
To his own wonderful human imagination, not to an external deity, but to the creative power within himself.
That's quite a story. Okay, then there's the woman in California. She wanted a husband, but a very specific kind of husband.
Yes, another really compelling example. This woman, she'd been married before, hadn't worked out. Now she had a very clear mental picture of the man she wanted, importantly. Someone who understood these principles of imagination.
She really defined her desire, clearly.
Very clearly. She conceived this image, this feeling, in September. Then she attended one of Goddard's lectures in October. Fast forward to January.
Don't tell me.
She meets the man sitting next to her for coffee after the lecture that day, and they get married. He fit her imagined ideal.
Incredible. And the husband have his own story running parallel to this. Something about a ring.
That's right. He shared his side later. Turns out he had also been living in the feeling of being married since that same September. Yes. And he'd bought himself a simple gold wedding band. He wore it, felt the reality of being married, slept, feeling that contentment. He used the physical object to help anchor the feeling.
Though Goddard would say the object itself isn't essential, right? It's the feeling.
Exactly. The feeling is the secret. And interestingly, this man had apparently struggled with alcoholism in the past. And part of his imaginal scene was that his ideal wife never mentioned his past, never brought it up, and apparently she never did. It shows the level of detail you can bring into these inner creations.
It really drives home that idea of living in the end, doesn't it? Feeling it real now.
Yeah.
Okay, one more story. The man with the bank loan.
Yes, the gentleman who wanted to clear his debt. His technique was very visual.
What did he do?
Every month when he made a payment, he wouldn't just see the remaining balance. In his mind's eye, he would visualize his bank statement showing 2 zeros in the balance due column.
Zero balance. Paid in full.
Exactly. He practiced this imaginal act consistently for about 3 months, really feeling the relief, the satisfaction of being debt-free.
And then?
And then completely out of the blue, his company paid out a mid-year bonus, a significant one.
Enough to.
Enough to pay off the entire loan with money left over, just like he'd been seeing it in his mind.
Wow. And Goddard mentions he then bought a tape recorder.
Yes, specifically to record Goddard's lectures. Seems he was convinced and wanted to dive deeper into understanding how it all worked.
These stories are powerful illustrations. But let's dig into the how a bit more, Neville's explanation for the mechanism behind this. He talks about God becoming human.
Yes, he has this concept that God, or pure imagination, willingly chose to limit itself, to take on the form of man, the constraints of flesh.
So imagination became embodied in us.
That's the idea. And he stresses that this same creative power, this inner God imagination, is what fuels all thoughts and desires, whether we label them good or evil.
He doesn't distinguish.
He argues the underlying power is the same. He might use examples like, say, Hitler or Stalin versus a pope or an archbishop. The creative principle they used, consciously or unconsciously, was identical, even if the outcomes were vastly different. There's only one source power.
That's a challenging idea. He also brought in scripture, interpretations from the Psalms.
He did. He pointed to Psalms 14 and 53, which are basically identical. They say, the fool says in his heart, there is no God.
Right.
But then they continue, saying the Lord looks down to see if anyone acts wisely, if anyone seeks the Lord.
And Neville's interpretation of seeking the Lord was,
Seeking your own imagination, looking within for that creative power. So in his view, not looking within, dismissing that inner power, is what constitutes foolishness, biblically speaking.
which ties into his idea about everyone being a mask worn by God.
Exactly. It's like every single person is a unique expression, a different mask, worn by the one fundamental divine imagination. He states it plainly. Imagination housed in man is God.
Okay, and then he connects thought to action.
Yes, he says, a thought acted upon is an imaginal act. Meaning, when you dwell on a thought, when you feel its reality, you are performing an imaginal act.
So thinking about different scenarios, like an earthquake or peace or health.
Is, according to him, setting the stage for their manifestation. Because you are the operant power. You are the mask God is currently wearing and experiencing through.
He really pushes for conviction, though, doesn't he? No half measures.
Definitely. He brings in that line from Revelation about being hot or cold, not lukewarm.
In relation to believing this.
Yes, in believing and actively testing this law of imagination, he felt a lukewarm, hesitant approach wouldn't yield results. You have to commit to the premise to see if it works.
And he found that people who initially resisted his ideas sometimes became.
His most dedicated students, those who felt their existing beliefs were really challenged, who argued against it, sometimes ended up embracing it most fully once they tested it for themselves.
What about the Bible itself? Many see it as history. How did Neville view it? He mentioned William Blake.
Right. He saw it very differently. He quoted Blake, who wrote that the Bible engages us because it speaks directly to our imagination, our spiritual sensation, not just our rational minds.
So not literal history, but
Imaginative instruction. That's how Goddard described it. He believed its stories and figures represent psychological dramas unfolding within us. And when the Bible's truths unfold in your own imagination, he said, they become more real, more substantial than physical reality itself.
and he kept circling back to that core identity.
That the eternal body of man is imagination. And that imagination is God himself, using names like Jesus, the Lord God, Jehovah, interchangeably with imagination.
He touched on some really deep theological concepts, too, like God becoming us so we could become God.
Yes, this idea of a voluntary fall, God, the unified consciousness deliberately fragmenting itself, falling into division or fragmented space, meaning into individual human forms.
Why? What's the purpose of that fall?
The ultimate purpose in his teaching is reunification, to gather all the fragmented pieces, all the individuals, back into the one body, the one spirit, which he equated with love.
And in that unified state.
Earthly distinctions dissolve. No Greek, no Jew, no bond, no free, no male, no female, echoing Paul's letters. You realize your true identity is that unified God. The physical experience, the suffering Paul talks about, pales in comparison to that revealed glory within. It's a way of describing how the one became many to experience limitation in order eventually to return to unity with expanded awareness.
And throughout all this complex theology and these stories, he brings it back to that simple, powerful title of the lecture.
Yours for the taking. Yes, that's the constant refrain. Everything you truly desire, anything you can conceive of and feel is real, it's available.
The key is claiming it.
Claiming it in imagination, believing it's yours. If it hasn't shown up outside yet, the work is inside. Imagine and feel that you already have it. Live from that state of the wish fulfilled.
Because ultimately...
Ultimately, everything is yours for the taking. That's the promise.
Okay, so if we distill this whole deep dive down, the absolute core message seems to be this really radical idea. Our imagination isn't just, mental playtime.
Not at all. It's presented as the fundamental creative power of the universe, and it's operating in us as us.
And our beliefs, that deep-seated conviction in what we imagine, that's the actual mechanism shaping our reality.
That's the argument. So those desires we hold, the deep ones, if we can truly believe them, feel them as real in our imagination,
They're not just hopes.
they're potential realities, blueprints really, for what can manifest. It's about shifting your inner state from one of lacking or wanting to one of having or being. That feeling state, that's the catalyst.
Right, that makes sense within his framework.
Which brings us, I suppose, to a final thought, something for you, our listener, to maybe sit with.
Okay.
If we accept this premise, even just hypothetically, that your imagination holds this incredible power, then the question becomes, what reality are you going to consciously choose? What will you decide to imagine and believe into being?
Or maybe, put another way, if the only real limit is your own belief, what are you actually capable of creating?
Exactly. It kind of opens up everything, doesn't it? A whole universe of possibility, starting right inside your own mind.